It started as just another glittering night on The Tonight Show until Taylor Swift noticed a sign in the audience that made her stop mid-sentence and transformed Studio 6B into a place where love confronted mortality. Studio 6B was electric with anticipation. The Roots were dialed into their signature groove. The audience buzzed with that particular energy that came with a Taylor Swift appearance, and Jimmy Fallon was running through his final preparation routine. Tonight's guest was Taylor Swift, returning to promote her latest re-recorded album and discuss the stories behind songs that had defined a generation. The iconic New York City skyline glittered through the studio's massive LED backdrop. The stage was set for what everyone expected would be another charming conversation filled with Taylor's wit, her storytelling gifts, and those moments of unexpected depth that reminded everyone why she'd become one of the most beloved artists of her generation. What nobody noticed during the pre-show excitement was the woman in row 7, seat 11. Sarah Mitchell, 38 years old, sat perfectly still between her sister and her best friend. Her head was completely bald from chemotherapy, covered only by a colorful scarf she'd chosen that morning with shaking hands. In her lap, she held a handmade sign, the letters carefully painted in purple and gold: Stage 4 breast cancer. 3 months to live. This is my last wish. Sarah had been diagnosed 18 months ago. The cancer had spread aggressively despite treatment. 3 weeks ago, her oncologist had told her there were no more options. 3 months, maybe less. Time to get her affairs in order. Time to say goodbye to her daughters, Emma, 8 years old, and Sophie, 6. The hardest part wasn't dying. Sarah had made peace with that. The hardest part was leaving her girls without a mother, without someone to teach them about love and courage and all the small moments that make a life meaningful. So Sarah had started making videos. Mommy messages, she called them, instructions for their first periods, advice for heartbreaks, recipes for her famous chocolate chip cookies, and in every single video, playing softly in the background, was a Taylor Swift song. Taylor's music had been the soundtrack to Sarah's life since she was a teenager. It had played at her wedding. It had comforted her through her diagnosis, and now it would be how her daughters remembered her voice, her laughter, her love. When they're older, Sarah had explained to her sister while making the sign, when they miss me and they hear Taylor's music, they'll remember these videos. They'll remember I loved them enough to leave pieces of myself behind. The show opened flawlessly. Jimmy's monologue was sharp and current, earning genuine laughter. When he introduced Taylor Swift, the studio erupted. 300 people on their feet, showing the kind of genuine enthusiasm that transcended fandom into something more like gratitude. Taylor walked onto the stage in an elegant emerald dress that caught the studio lights perfectly. She hugged Jimmy warmly, waved to the audience with characteristic grace, and settled into the guest chair with the easy confidence of someone who had done this 1,000 times but still found joy in it. Taylor Swift, everybody, Jimmy said, settling behind his desk. Thank you so much for being here. The new album is absolutely incredible. I want to talk about the re-recording process and what it means to revisit these songs years later. Taylor smiled, that genuine smile that had endeared her to millions. You know, Jimmy, when I sing these songs now, I hear them through everything I've learned about love, loss, friendship. They mean something different, something deeper, something deeper. As Taylor spoke, her eyes naturally scanned the audience, a habit she'd developed from years of performing, always trying to connect with individual faces in the crowd. That's when she saw it. The sign, the bald head, the woman holding that piece of cardboard with words that stopped Taylor's heart. Her storytelling rhythm faltered. She blinked, read the sign again, and something in her expression changed completely. The entertainer disappeared, replaced by a human being confronting something that transcended celebrity. Jimmy, Taylor said softly, her voice taking on a different quality. I'm so sorry, but I need to do something. There's someone in the audience I need to talk to. Jimmy looked surprised, but immediately understanding. Of course, whatever you need. Taylor stood up and walked toward the edge of the stage, her eyes finding Sarah again. The woman in row 7 with the sign. Would you mind standing up? Sarah's hands began shaking. She looked at her sister, who nodded encouragingly. Slowly, Sarah stood, holding her sign, aware that 300 pairs of eyes had suddenly turned toward her. What's your name? Taylor asked gently, her voice carrying clearly across the studio. Sarah, she replied, her voice barely audible even with the studio's sound system. Sarah Mitchell. Taylor's eyes were already filling with tears. Sarah, I can read your sign from here. Is it true? Stage 4? Sarah nodded, unable to speak. What? And this is your last wish? To be here tonight? Yes, Sarah managed to say. Taylor didn't hesitate. She walked off the stage, not down the steps, but jumping down with an urgency that showed this wasn't about performance anymore. She made her way through the audience, and people instinctively made space, understanding they were witnessing something sacred. She reached Sarah's row, and for a moment 2 women stood facing each other, one at the height of her career, one facing the end of her life. And in that moment, all the distance between celebrity and reality disappeared completely. "Can I hug you?" Taylor asked softly. Sarah nodded, and Taylor pulled her into an embrace. Sarah's composure shattered. She sobbed into Taylor's shoulder, releasing months of carefully controlled fear and grief. "I'm so sorry," Taylor whispered. "I'm so sorry." When they pulled apart, Taylor was crying too. She gently touched Sarah's scarf. "This is beautiful. I have 2 daughters," Sarah said, the words tumbling out now. "Emma is 8 and Sophie is 6. I've been making videos for them for when I'm gone. Messages for all the moments I'll miss, and in every video your music is playing." Taylor's face crumbled. "Your babies. I want them to remember me through your songs," Sarah continued, her voice stronger now. "When they hear your music, I want them to hear my voice too, to remember that I loved them, that I didn't want to leave them." Jimmy Fallon had left his desk and joined them, tears streaming down his face. "Sarah," Taylor said, holding both of Sarah's hands now, "tell me about your girls. What are they like?" Sarah's face lit up despite her tears. "Emma is brave and bossy. She wants to be a doctor because she thinks she can cure cancer. Sophie is gentle and creative. She writes little stories and draws pictures of us as a family with angel wings so we can all fly together." Taylor pressed her hand to her chest, overwhelmed. "They sound perfect." "They are," Sarah whispered, "and they're going to grow up without a mother." The studio was completely silent. Even the crew had stopped moving. "Sarah," Taylor said, her voice thick with emotion, "what songs do you use in the videos?" Sarah managed a small laugh through her tears. "All of them, but mostly the ones about being strong, about surviving, about love that doesn't end just because someone goes away." Taylor nodded, understanding. She turned to address the entire studio. "Everyone, I want you to meet Sarah Mitchell. She's 38 years old. She has stage 4 breast cancer. She has 3 months to live. She has 2 daughters who are about to lose their mother. And she's spending one of her last good days here, with all of us, because this was her final wish." The audience remained silent, hanging on every word. "Sarah," Taylor continued, turning back to her, "I want to make you a promise, actually 2 promises." Sarah looked up, tears streaming down her face. "First, when Emma turns 16, I'm going to bring her to one of my concerts, front row, and I'm going to tell everyone there about her mother, about your courage, about the videos you made, about how much you loved your daughters. The same for Sophie when she turns 16. Your girls will never forget you, but I want to make sure the world knows your story too." Sarah's sister was now openly sobbing. Jimmy was wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "And second," Taylor said, "I'm going to perform a song for you right now, just for you and your daughters. Because if my music is going to be part of how they remember you, then I want to give you one more memory to leave them." She turned to Jimmy. "Can we do this?" "Absolutely," Jimmy said without hesitation. What happened next was pure magic. Taylor Swift, one of the biggest stars in the world, stood in the middle of a talk show audience and sang. No production, no backing track, just her voice filling Studio 6B with a song about love and memory and the way some bonds transcend even death. As she sang, Sarah closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face, memorizing every note, every word, knowing this moment would be in her next video for her daughters. When the song ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the studio. Taylor pulled Sarah into another embrace. "Your daughters are so lucky," Taylor whispered. "They have a mother who loves them enough to fight for every moment, to leave them pieces of herself, to make sure they know they're loved even when you can't be there to say it." But Taylor wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone. "I'm going to record something for Emma and Sophie right now. A message from me to them for when they're older, about their mother, about this moment, about how much she loved them. Is that okay?" Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Taylor looked directly into her phone camera and spoke for 3 minutes about courage, about motherhood, about the woman she'd just met who was spending her final days making sure her children would be okay. She talked about the videos, about the music, about how love doesn't end just because someone dies. "Emma and Sophie," Taylor said into the camera, "when you watch this years from now, I want you to know that your mother was a hero. Not because she fought cancer, but because she loved you so much that even dying couldn't stop her from being your mom. The videos she made, the music she chose, every moment she spent preparing you for a future without her, that's the most powerful love I've ever witnessed." She turned the phone off and handed it to Sarah's sister. "Make sure they get this when they're ready." Then Taylor did something that would become legendary. She removed a delicate gold bracelet from her wrist, a bracelet she'd worn for years, one that fans had seen in countless photos and videos. "This was my grandmother's," Taylor said softly. "She gave it to me before she died and told me to give it to someone who needed to remember that love is stronger than anything else in the world." She carefully placed the bracelet in Sarah's hand. "When your daughters are older, give this to them. Tell them it's from their mother and from me. Tell them that women like you and my grandmother taught me that real strength isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and loving anyway." Sarah clutched the bracelet, crying too hard to speak. "Thank you," she finally whispered. "Thank you for giving me this, for seeing me, for making sure they'll remember." "They'll remember," Taylor said firmly. "I promise you they'll remember." Jimmy stepped forward. "Sarah, is there anything else you want to say to Taylor? Anything you want her to know?" "What?" Sarah looked at Taylor, this woman who had unknowingly been the soundtrack to her entire life, and said the only words that mattered. "You saved me, not just tonight. All the times I felt alone, all the times I was scared, your music reminded me that I wasn't the first person to feel this way, that I could survive. And now your music is going to be how my daughters remember that they come from love, that their mother fought for them until her very last breath." Taylor pulled Sarah into one more embrace, and they stood there in the middle of Studio 6B, two women connected by music and mortality and the understanding that some moments are too important to be measured by fame or fortune. When they finally pulled apart, Taylor had one more question. "Sarah, what song do you want Emma and Sophie to hear and think of you?" Sarah smiled through her tears. "The one about being fearless, about love being brave, about choosing joy even when the world gives you reasons not to." Taylor nodded, understanding. "Then that's what they'll hear, and they'll know their mother was the bravest person I ever met." Sarah Mitchell returned home the next day carrying something she hadn't felt in months: peace, not because the cancer was gone, but because she knew her daughters would be okay. They would remember her through music and videos and the bracelet from Taylor Swift that proved their mother had been seen, had been valued, had been loved. 6 weeks later, Sarah passed away peacefully at home, surrounded by her family. Her sister made sure that Taylor's video message and the bracelet were kept safe for Emma and Sophie. Taylor kept her promise. When Emma turned 16, she attended a concert in the front row with her sister and aunt. Taylor stopped the show, told their mother's story, and dedicated a performance to Sarah Mitchell, the woman who had taught Taylor that music wasn't just entertainment, it was legacy. The Tonight Show episode became one of the most watched in history, but more importantly, it sparked a national conversation about terminal illness, about motherhood, about the courage it takes to say goodbye while still fighting to leave love behind. Sarah's mommy videos inspired thousands of other parents facing terminal diagnoses to create their own messages of love. The videos became a movement, a reminder that death doesn't get the final word, love does. And in a small house where two girls were growing up without their mother, Taylor Swift's music played softly every night, carrying Sarah Mitchell's voice, her laughter, her unwavering love, proving that some bonds really do transcend mortality. It wasn't just late-night television that night. It was a master class in how to face death with dignity, how to love beyond your last breath, and how sometimes the most powerful thing a celebrity can do is simply witness someone else's courage. Some music entertains. The best music becomes memory.